Welcome once again to the official MUFON podcast. I'm Richard Beckwith. Debbie Ziegelmeyer joined MUFON in the year 2000 and became a field investigator shortly thereafter. She is currently a MUFON Star Team Investigator, Missouri State Director, and she's on the MUFON Business Board of Directors. She's also a member of the MUFON MARRS team and co-founder of the MUFON Dive Team, as well as the MUFON Functional Director of Underwater Research and Recovery. She has over 1,200 completed UFO investigations, with over 875 of those being MUFON sighting reports. Debbie has been a Roswell 1947 crash investigator for over 25 years and is also a member of Ted Phillips' T.P.R.C. team. In 2017, she was awarded both the Roswell Incident Excellence Award by the Roswell Daily Record and the MUFON Field Investigator of the Year Award. Debbie's book, The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, which was released in the year 2021, is a reference guide to UFO-USO Water Related Activity. Debbie is also a PADI Scuba Instructor and owner of Missouri Scuba Diving, LLC. She has made multiple podcast, conference, and TV appearances, and is also the author of the book, The 50th Anniversary of the Southeast Missouri Ozarks UFO Flap, co-authored with Margie Kay. Debbie will be one of our featured speakers at the MUFON Symposium this July in Dallas, and we are fortunate to have her here tonight as our guest on the official MUFON podcast. Debbie Ziegelmeyer, welcome to the program once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate you coming. You've been busy.
Oh, very, always. Missouri is a good place to stay busy. There's always something going on in Missouri.
We were just talking about your experience during the eclipse.
Right. I live 90 miles straight up 55, Interstate 55 from Cape Girardeau, which was famous for the 1941 UFO landing. And I went the 90 miles south, straight down the highway, 4 minutes, 10 seconds, totality. We looked at it without glasses. You couldn't see it if you had the glasses on, the solar glasses, just completely blacked out. It was incredible. Wow. We could see Jupiter kind of to the left, upper left, and Venus to the lower right of the sun. And it was about 2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh,
it was great. They had festivals going on all week. I spoke. Margie Kay, our Missouri Assistant State Director, and our Chief Investigator, Mel Van Vickel, and I spoke in Piedmont on Saturday. That would have been the 5th. 8th, 6th, Saturday the 6th. They had a big UFO festival / eclipse festival. Then on Sunday, Margie Kay and I spoke in Mountain View, Missouri, both Missouri. And they also had an eclipse and a festival. They had a Buck Nelson festival. Apparently, Buck Nelson lived in the area in the early 1950s and had UFO conferences back in the 1950s in Missouri. So they had a conference there, a UFO eclipse conference. So it's been very busy around here. And I think about 10 minutes ago, we had an earthquake.
Oh, really?
My whole office, I'm in my office and the whole thing, everything was shaking in here. So never a dull moment.
Well, you've been involved in MUFON for a really, really long time. Actually, do you mind if I ask how long you've been with MUFON?
I started going to meetings in 1998, so not that long. I joined MUFON in 2000 and became an investigator in 2001.
But you've written some books, and you also have a particular area of speciality, as they would say, in that you are an experienced diver and a dive instructor. And so you head up MUFON's dive team in the event we have any investigations that might have to take place in a submerged manner.
Right.
Right. And you're also the state director for Missouri. So how did you start doing this for MUFON, doing the diving stuff? Was it just simply because you were the two interests melded in a way, or?
Well, I became an investigator in the early part of 2001. I joined MUFON at the symposium in 2000, which happened to be here in Missouri. And in 2000 and let's see, well, actually, right around the same time, my son and my husband decided they wanted to take up scuba diving. And so they got all excited. My husband bought me all this gear. I really had no interest. And the weekend after 9/11, I became a certified diver, which was really bad timing because the FBI was looking at all these people that were new divers. And so I joined MUFON, which drew some attention. And then I became a scuba diver right afterward and drew more attention to myself. But that was really why. So as we had a condo on the Florida Keys, which is probably why they wanted to dive. And just looking underwater, I thought, my gosh, I was drawn to the water sightings. And I discovered that it's 1 in 5 sightings is water related in one way, shape, or form. And it depends on where you live. If you live in Minnesota, there's going to be a lot of lakes. There's going to be a lot of sightings. If you live in Arizona, maybe not so much with the water. In Missouri, though, my gosh, it's probably 50% between all of our rivers and lakes and the streams and everything else. It just seems like water just happened to be the commonality. And so I was drawn to that. And before I knew it, Tom Ferrario, who at the time I believe he was our chief investigator at the time, I joined MUFON. If not their lead investigator, he and I are both divers. I became an instructor, and he was a dive master. And we were discussing at one time with Ted Phillips, and Ted wanted to go looking underwater. And that's kind of how it got started. So actually the dive team's been around since 2003. It just, we're going in another direction because everything is so deep. So if any of the listeners are interested in being on the dive team, you can contact me at MUFONDiver@gmail.com. And what we would also like are people interested in diving in case there is something in the water, in and around the water in your area, or you are maybe a retired scuba diver. We would like the expertise. And the important thing about that is here, the Mississippi River, there have been craft seen coming in and out of the Mississippi River, not too far, maybe 12 miles from here. And the tic-tac, a lot of tic-tac shaped craft in and around that area. And people say, well, why don't you go diving in the Mississippi and see what's down there? Yeah, because I enjoy life. You don't go diving in the Mississippi River. My son-in-law is a firefighter, water rescue, and he doesn't want to go diving in the Mississippi River. So that's why we need
I imagine it's
expertise.
because of all sorts of different environmental concerns and what might be there.
My gosh. There's so much, I guess, from floods. The Mississippi River floods a lot. There's debris, a lot of debris, a lot of things to get hung up on. Abandoned cars, all kinds of things in there. When you have floodwaters that comes in and out, and it's a very dangerous place. A lot of undercurrents, and limited visibility. Yeah. As part of my diving instructor, I'm an instructor. My son-in-law and I used to teach firefighters scuba diving, and we would basically teach them in a quarry with limited visibility because most of it is by feel. Firefighters when they go scuba diving for something, when they're on duty, it's car recovery, maybe body recovery out of a vehicle. And there's such limited visibility that everything is by using ropes and feel with your hands. So I pretty well know what the visibility is in those places.
I can tell you that if I ever go scuba diving, I go snorkeling every summer. I have a wetsuit and all that, and I've been thinking about scuba diving. But if I ever go scuba diving, I will not be wanting to run into a dead body.
No, no.
You know, that's, I would, you know, I would not, I'm not sure that I would want to put myself in a situation where, oh, there he is. I don't, I guess I don't have the fortitude for that.
Well, that's why I so appreciate our first responders, because I've got some good friends and family that are police officers, and my daughter and my son-in-law are both firefighters. And he does the water rescue. Somebody's got to go, into the water and recover somebody. If
Well, I
that
always
happens.
think about that guy in Jaws when he, he gets out of the boat to see, what's going on with Ben Gardner's boat, and he swims up to the hole, and and Ben Gardner's head pops out with an eye missing. That's that kind of scares me.
you know, they have. I don't want to go scuba diving in Australia because of the great whites, but I've been diving a lot, and I've seen sharks. And usually, when you see a shark, at depth, you've got a camera. Most of us, we'll take our GoPros now, and we're chasing them, trying to catch up and get a good shot. They're very shy underwater. Fish don't bother you. Nothing bothers you underwater unless you attack it, you touch it. Keep your hands to yourself. Don't go over, be pulling on a fin. And it's the same thing. People get into trouble in these national parks because they have to get out. Then they're walking up to and they're harassing a buffalo or a bear or something.
Yeah, we got a lot of those folks over here in Wyoming that would like to get real nice up close with a buffalo, and it ends up going the wrong way for them. That happens quite often in Yellowstone and up in the northwestern part of Wyoming. People just don't understand how dangerous those animals can be, and the best thing to do is just get yourself a really good telephoto lens. Stay behind the car.
Right.
Very, very, very simple. Or stay in the car. Even better.
And fish are the same way. They're not going to bother you. Leave them alone. Most likely, they've got a young one around somewhere. Or, maybe they've had a bad day. Don't instigate something. But but that's why I decided I started, and that's why the presentation too about water.
Well, that's what I want to really kind of get into is this notion that UFOs are associated with water, especially in light of all of the revelations that have taken place over the last few years about USOs. And, among the footage that we've been provided or leaked that has been authenticated includes at least one UFO that is shown being airborne and then going into the ocean, apparently without any splash or anything like that. And so you mentioned, I think, in something that you've written, that something that I agree with, that the oceans of the world, the waters of the world, have been largely unexplored. And certainly we need to take into consideration the notion, the very high, well, I don't want to say probability, but we have to take into consideration the possibility that our visitors use the oceans and use water as a way to conceal themselves.
That's kind of that's what I've been investigating. It started out as a diver. I was gathering up everything I could on water. That just focused on my interest was focused in that direction. Part of it was I went on a cruise to Cozumel. First of all, I went diving in Cozumel, and right off of the cruise ships, there's an airplane that was crashed there, just a little propeller airplane, two-propeller airplane from the 1970s for a movie. And it's only about 22 feet deep. You go in from the shore, you swim up, you're right close to the cruise ships. It's very visible, very clear, when you're underwater, you can look up in Cozumel and see the water moving back and forth 75 feet. You're 75 feet deep and you can see the water moving. The point is, I went in there on a cruise ship, docked on the cruise, docked on the cruise there, Royal Caribbean ship, looked down to the area and I couldn't see anything. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's 22 feet deep is all. I'm over the top, being able to look down, and you can't see anything. Now, you can even snorkel up and look down, and then with snorkeling, you can. If you swim up, the point is, if you can't be high up and look down and not see somebody underwater, a whole group of people at 22 feet, what's deeper? What's hiding deeper? We have the Mariana Trench in the South Pacific is 7 miles deep. And because of the pressure, we just don't go there. I mean, we know what happened to the Titan last year, the little the Explorer submarine, the tourist submarine that went down to see the Titanic. That's extreme pressure. When you get down, that was only, Titanic's only at 2.5 miles deep. And the pressure is so bad that it just, you don't explode, you implode. Everything just goes in, you just disintegrate. And that's just at 2.5 miles. So I can't even imagine our average trench, which the trenches are the spaces in between our tectonic plates. The average trench is about 2.5 miles deep. So the water is very, very deep. It's not friendly to humans. If an airplane crashes into the water, if you jump into the water, let's say you decide you're going to jump off a cliff into the water, you're most likely, if it's a high enough cliff, you're going to break a leg, an arm, your back. It's not a very friendly environment for us. Yet these craft come into our atmosphere, go into the water, and pass through at a high rate of speed with ease. So that's what really intrigued me. That, and lately, since 2017, we've just had one after another of these videos that have been released, all by the Navy. And the reason that it's been kept such a secret is the vastness of our oceans and our seas. We've only explored less than 5% of our waterways. We know more about the moon and Mars than we know about what's underwater. And with the vastness of the ocean, if you've ever been on a cruise ship and then you look out and you can just see forever in the water. And there's, it just goes on and on and on. The chances of actually catching something coming in and out of the water are pretty remote. So it's a very, very good place to hide. And so my presentation, my book, I decided a few years ago during COVID, while everybody was trying to decide what to do with our off time. A lot of things were closed. I thought, oh my gosh, I have 20 years of research. I'm going to put it into a book. And it ended up being a reference book on underwater sightings and the history of them, and, why, and under maybe the places where there may or may not be underwater bases in some of our bases. And I was, after reading through my documents that I had and all the information in my files, I was about a month into it, and I just stopped for a few days, and I thought, these aren't visitors. They're living here. They've been here. The evidence was there. And so I renamed the book to The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways. But for the MUFON Symposium, I decided to take it a step further, because I thought, we've all seen the videos of something floating over the top of an ocean or a sea, going in, coming out. We've heard about that. That's what's been released by Jeremy Corbell. That's what Grush is talking about. That, the Tic Tac from the Nimitz that was seen from a freighter. But what's happening underwater? We know little about what is actually going on underwater. So my presentations are going to focus on sounds that were picked up, reports by sonar in submarines. And then also I found about a dozen witnesses that were abducted and can remember being taken underwater and what they saw and what they experienced.
So relative to the water and the ability of these craft that we're talking about to conduct themselves in a transmedium manner by traveling from 200,000 feet out in space, down through the atmosphere and down to sea level, and now apparently underwater as well. They have this transmedium ability. Would you agree that we can also presume, given what appears to be this advanced technology that they are in command of, that they have overcome the problems that we have relative to pressure and depth, such that they could go probably to any depth in the ocean, even the deepest part of the ocean, as you mentioned, in the Marianas Trench, and establish bases or even colonies there. And here's another thing I'll hit you with is if they do in fact inhabit our oceans, maybe even subglacial lakes and so forth. I mean, who does this planet really belong to anyone? I mean, are they really aliens, or are they just other inhabitants of Earth, possibly that with whom we share the planet, simply without any intermingling of note between our species? Did I throw too much at you?
No. To answer the first question, I had just begun to become friends with Carl Feind. Oh my gosh, just the most wonderful gentleman. I met him at the MUFON Symposium, and I just looked forward every year to going to the symposium, and the two of us would sit and have conversation. Carl's theory was that these craft come in and out of our atmosphere and in and out of the water because that electromagnetic field that all of us are always looking for as field investigators. The thing on Close Encounters, if you watch the movie, and it causes the truck to shake, it causes the radio to go on. It's this effect that happens when the craft is in the area. That Carl believed that this electromagnetic field allow them to come in and out of our atmosphere without a sonic boom, go in and out of the water and travel at ease, because the craft are never actually touching the atmosphere or the water. They're surrounded by some type of an electromagnetic field. So you've got the craft in the middle, and they can make it bigger or smaller or stronger or weaker or oblong or however they need to be able to maneuver around to, whatever circumstance, is involved, whether it's atmosphere or it's water. Whether or not they want to go up depth, you got pressure, it's going to be, probably a stronger field. It'll be a different type of a field with air. And so Carl had thought that. Well, I started thinking about hydrogen. Water is H2O. And so I believe they're also harvesting our hydrogen, which NASA had always used hydrogen to replenish its fuel cells. Why wouldn't alien craft use our hydrogen to replenish their electromagnetic field, which it's a possibility. We don't know for sure. However, that's one reason why you see these craft hovering over water, and they're bringing something up, or maybe they've come out of the water, or they're filtering something back down. They're taking what they need out of the water, which may in fact be hydrogen. So, that's one reason why they're in the water. And as far as being there for a long time, the Tic Tac that we talked about from the Nimitz 2004, it was 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. That was another thing that I started investigating, and I found several different descriptions of a Tic Tac. We had 2 police officers last year in Missouri, it was right by the Mississippi River, saw a Tic Tac. We have a video of one from 2011. A young man and his mother were going across the Mississippi River and taped this thing going by. But I found a reference to a description of a Tic Tac in the Bible. So that long ago, they called it a roll that was, I believe, 10 by 15 cubits is what the description was. So yes, I believe that someone from someplace else settled on our planet. Oh gosh, centuries ago. They're underwater. There's reports of alien beings by Russians, at 10-foot tall alien beings at depth. Divers saw them at 165 feet. They were seen from a submarine at 1,300 feet swimming around. So if you're something that you're swimming around that deep, they're down there. How long have they been there? Well, we don't go down there, so we don't know. We're not spending a lot of time at depth.
And we're talking
And I mean,
about the possibility
alien
of creatures
residents.
that may be aquatic in nature, that the ocean
Absolutely.
is their
We
natural
would refer
environment.
to them as aquatic. We're still, when our research submarines go down, they're still finding species at depth that we didn't know existed. And so why not go deeper? And maybe there's residents down there that we did not know existed.
But if they're possessed of this technology, then we certainly have reason possibly to be concerned about them from a national security perspective. What do you think? This year's theme at the symposium is the battle for transparency, the fight for transparency, the battle for disclosure, essentially. And so, where are you on that spectrum? Because there are people, because you were in the meeting with the congressman with me when he said, "Can we tell the people?" And I said no, and I saw the look on your face. so I'm wondering, Debbie, as far as disclosure, where are you on that spectrum? And what do we mean by disclosure? What do you think disclosure means?
Well, let's see. I don't believe we're ever going to have full disclosure. There's too much been hidden for too long. You have people right now, there are Congress people and senators that want disclosure, but then you know how that is. We have other individuals that are fighting it. That's why it's not coming easy. So even though we have people that we have elected into office want some type of disclosure, we have people behind the scenes that do not, or are dragging their feet and trying to stop this the best they can. I believe that we need to know what's going on. I mean, my gosh, this isn't medieval times. We've got cell phones, we've got the internet, we have knowledge, we're humans, we have curiosity. I don't believe hiding this anymore. It's almost passe. If you ask a small child about aliens, my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law got so mad. Her first word was daddy, her second word was alien. And it was because I had this little alien playset. She walked up and said alien and handed me a little one. But they're deep, they're I would say deep programmed. They're desensitized. And this has been going on for a long time. I think back in the 50s starting with 1941 in Cape Girardeau, and then we had 1947 Roswell, and then we had 1952, and then we had Eisenhower that supposedly had a meeting right around then when TV came out. I believe that the forces behind the scene decided that it wouldn't be a bad idea. And in fact, I believe they worked with Disney and other cartoons and other production companies at first to scare us a little bit. You remember all the movies with the giant, 100-foot tall or 50-foot tall woman or whatever. There were, it's a cookbook. I mean, it seemed like they were.
That was a great episode.
Us.
That was a great episode.
All these people getting on the craft, and it was to serve man, and they thought, they're trying to help us.
Turns out the flying saucers were just cattle trucks.
Exactly. So, but now it went right from that into Star Trek. And I was more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan, because just the wars, put me off a little bit. The word wars. I like Star Trek, that we were going out a 5-year mission to boldly go and to find out what's out there. And that's our curiosity. That's why we're scuba divers. That's why you have people that go skydiving. That's why you have hikers. We have a curiosity. We want to know, and I don't think it's going to frighten anybody. I mean, my gosh, look at all the videos that have been released. Have you seen the masses, start rioting and, there's aliens? And
that's a thing, Debbie. I'll hit you with the same thing I've hit another couple of my guests with, which is, and I think we talked about it that day when we were having our meeting with our congressman friend. The discussion essentially is, well, how do you separate the basic information that we're being visited by some other entity or entities, if you will, from another planet or another another galaxy, perhaps another existence,
or another time.
right? Another, maybe they're time travelers, but how do you have disclosure about that, but at the same time keep back the technology that you've gotten from that? Because ultimately, we know, you and I know, based upon what we know through our study of this, that the potential for the complete destruction of everything on our planet exists as the result, or could result from the dissemination of certain technologies, in particular, the use of certain energy production devices. And so, beyond just nuclear weapons, but, for example, 0 point energy. I am aware of a device that was constructed by someone that could simply draw energy from the quantum plenum, from the expansion of space-time, and just by turning a knob, they could get as much power out of it as they wanted, even as much as a nuclear reactor. But a technology like that has the potential to, if in the wrong hands, could potentially lead to the destruction of humankind. And so that I don't know how it's possible, and I see why they don't want to tell us, because then the next thing is, how are they getting from here to there, and what's the energy source that they're using, and it's this stuff, and well, why can't we have that stuff? And then you get that stuff, and then you blow everybody up with it. You see what I'm getting at?
Oh, yeah, well, that started with the first really documented about back engineering was really Philip Corso's book, The Day After Roswell.
Yeah.
And in the book, he talked about how it was in the 1970s, early 70s, he was given items. There was the fiber optics that apparently went to Bell Telephone, and Dow Chemical got to the night vision and different things. But the problem you have with that too, that he had a second book, Philip Corso did, that was only published in Italy. It was banned here. I was able to get a copy of it. And in that, he also talked about the problem they had was, some of it was that able to manipulate, or to actually, I guess you would say, fly these spaceships. It was done by putting their hands on a panel. It was done by mentally. And even though we had the technology, we didn't have the capabilities at that time to try and reverse engineer it. And there's people that you probably don't know, but these people, but do not know that they were actually involved in this. But there's people we both know that were involved in the 1970s, finding and studying people who could remote view. And they were hoping that these people would have the mental capabilities of doing something like this. It's like taking a nuclear sub and taking it back to the time of Julius Caesar. Oh boy, look what we have. What do we do with it? They can't rebuild. They can't copy. Back then, a nuclear sub. It's about the same thing. You've got this vast futuristic technology, and unless these alien beings are going to cooperate with us and help us learn how to back engineer, there's a lot of it that we were not that far advanced. No, we weren't that far advanced in the 1940s. I imagine by now, from what we've seen, some of what's out there is most likely. I mean, there could be things out there that we're seeing that do belong to us, secret craft, because I think it's probably 15, 20 years more in advance than what we actually know about some of the things that are out there that governments have developed, but not 1,000 years advanced. So I think a lot of that's it. Some of it, maybe there is. A lot of the the abductees talk about that when they see these alien beings, there's a lot of times there's also someone that's humanoid or looks human, or they talk about how they were greeted by somebody who looked to be human that said that they have lived in these bases with these alien beings. So it's making you wonder, or makes me wonder, are our governments learning to back engineer and maybe use some of this technology? But why aren't they sharing it with us? If they shared it with you and with me, and that everybody else agreed, it's power. The secrets. There's power in a secret.
Yeah.
And if
I think it's possible. Certainly it is power. It's power and money,
and treaties
and all those things.
Well, we've agreed on treaties through NATO too, that if something like that, we're supposed to be sharing. And if you don't tell, you don't have to share. Right?
Well, if it doesn't exist, there's no need to share information that you have about something that just isn't there. But
you brought up too, though, if I thought that they were a threat. Well, like I said, you can go through the Bible. I have a King James version of the Bible, and read some of that. Read it with different eyes. Read it, what thinking more in today's terms. When you have something that you don't know how to describe, a giant wheel in the sky, a wheel of fire brought down a beam, and somebody went up, and there's horses. Well, like the Native Americans used to talk about the Thunderbird, and now they're rethinking their stories and thinking this was a giant triangle-shaped craft, this Thunderbird. So people with limited education will describe something with what they know and what's around them, and that's their description. But you can look through the Bible, and there were visitations way back then. If they were there, if they've been here, if in fact they are living underwater and maybe in mountains, like I believe that these beings are, and living basically side by side with us, they've had plenty of time to wipe us out. They've got the capabilities, they've got the knowledge, they've got the technology. They haven't. And so that's not a fear that I have at all. We're living together. Whether or not I guess I would say they're keeping their secret, maybe because they don't quite trust us yet.
I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it like with eyes that recognize the possibility that we may be living in a simulation, and that these beings are somehow a part of this simulation, because everything in the universe can be basically reduced to a quantity that can be computed, and so I get that this is all part of some simulation. Or the other part that scares me, and you've probably heard me say this too, that what if it's what if we're food or some kind of a resource, and that's why they don't want to tell us that that the human race is the result of a genetic experiment. And so that really brings into question issues around the existence of God, or what is God, or is there a God? And very basic questions about our existence. And so that's why I say, when we talk about disclosure, are we talking about the basic information that we're being visited? I think that's clear, obvious. But then when we start getting down into the weeds of the wheres and the whos and the whys, then all of a sudden things sort of fall apart, because you start finding out information that could eventually, like I said, lead to our destruction, perhaps, or that lead us down a path that make us look at ourselves in a way that maybe we didn't want to see before. You know what I mean?
Well, I
hate to be such a doomsdayer, but
no, I'm more of an optimist, because you can go back. I think we're their children. It's like we're God's children. When you read through, and and I don't usually it's not like I'm talking religion. It's like it's a reference. I have a Bible behind me. These are all my reference books, and it's one of the reference books because I like to go back and make comparisons. And one of them that I started thinking about was Adam and Eve. Okay, so Adam was created in the likeness of God, and then they took one of his ribs and made Eve. Was that cloning? You start to think of it in that kind of terms, that we were cloned originally. Maybe we're here and still in existence because we may be considered children, the innocence, pets. That not so much a pet. Well, I would say a pet sometimes. I mean, most of us think of our pets as our children. My goodness, if something happened to our little dog, I mean, that's a great tragedy. But it might be the same. I think they care about us. If you read some of the, my expertise is water. So I just kind of literally dove into abductions, reading a lot about that lately because I'm trying to find out if people have been taken underwater and where and what they remember. And so I'm getting more into that. And it seemed like a lot of the passages that I read, the transcripts, let me put it that way, the transcripts from regressions, people were saying that they were told that we need to take care of the earth and that there were different things that we needed to do to take care of ourselves. We need to eat healthier. We need to, one of them, they were told don't eat fish because, maybe these alien beings were fish-like. But it seems more that you would think if their agenda was to destroy us, they could have done it hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe, the way that some of the beings have been around, if they're that much far technology-wise than us. So I think we're fairly safe. I think if anything, they're here to not, well, one thing, they want to make sure we don't blow each other up. I started reading about atomic bombs, especially with all this going on with wars right now, that people are so afraid of us using nuclear weapons. Well, what they don't understand is that when you see that plume come up, you have an equal force going underneath also. And so if there are other beings that inhabited our Earth equally with us that we just don't know about, everything that we're doing on the surface that's going underneath, we're going to destroy them too. So that's a good argument for maybe not destroying us, but stopping us from destroying ourselves.
Well, we may be having an effect not only on other inhabitants of our planet that may be subterranean, perhaps in nature. Of course, that's surely speculative, but we may also be having an effect on the inhabitants of adjacent universes, adjacent realities.
Right. We've all seen little meteorites. We've all watched meteor showers. Things blow up out there and they come here. You blow up something here, it's going to go out there. So everything has a cause and effect. We have to be very careful with what we do. And I think we're being maybe babysat. And then some of this technology, it was accidentally given to us. If in fact, reverse engineered, that could be something else too. We could sit and speculate all day, but that's another thing that really
hacks me off. It's this idea that we've been, and I've talked with another couple of my guests about this idea that, if it's true that we've had these crashes and that we've gotten this technology, as Philip Corso talked about in his book, and then disseminated that technology, and I would assert that makes us smarter than monkeys with guns. I mean, if we can do that, but if in fact this is true, then we have been contaminated and unfairly, unduly so. In other words, would we really be on the brink of our own destruction had we not been contaminated over time with contact by people from somewhere else? Did they not have a prime directive? Did they not read the rules that if that the observer inevitably interferes with the results of an experiment? And so we've got these UFOs crashing all over the place. And then I hear this talk that we have to, grow spiritually enough with our technology so that we don't blow ourselves up. And I have to call BS on that. I say they owe us our existence. They need to keep us safe from ourselves because they have provided us with the seeds of our own destruction.
Right. We went along for thousands of years, and all of a sudden in the last 100, what happened? You're right. We were given technology, or allowed to possess technology that we never should have been able to.
Integrated circuits. I mean, how would if we were still using vacuum tubes to run, to do our computing for us, we'd all still be watching cathode ray tubes. Flat screen displays came out of the crash at Roswell. All these things that were, and they're really useful tools when you're trying to precisely target your enemies. These little things called microcircuits that we can build computers out of, it just smacks of disingenuousness to me to say that we need to develop spiritually with our technology, or we're going to destroy ourselves. When my listeners are going to be really mad at me because I've gone off on this before. But you see what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. 100 years ago, and we had the wheel. I mean, we were barely learning to fly, with the Wright brothers. But now all of a sudden, look at how much technology we have and how quickly we have it. And we do. Maybe that's why they're starting to show themselves a little bit more. We need to be babysat. It's their own fault. It's like giving scissors to a baby. If you're going to give scissors to a little kid, and you got to teach them how to use them and not how to hurt themselves.
Yeah, you can't just walk out of the room. You can't just walk out of the room and say, "Hey, I told him not to play with the scissors."
That's why little kids.
You gave him the scissors.
That's why they're rounded at the ends. No, they gave us the pointy ones right off.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You're right. That's a very good point. They have a responsibility to us because, if beings from other worlds, and we say they, maybe that's what the point is. Maybe we've got somebody. Maybe the reptilians came in and gave us all this because they're BS, disturbers. And then you got the grazer to come in and try and fix things, or maybe vice versa. But there's more than one species. And I think there's so much going out there that maybe that's probably why we can't figure this out, because we're trying to think of it in singularity. There's a craft, there's a being. Well, there's a lot of different kinds of craft controlled by a lot of different beings from a lot of different places with a lot of different agendas. And there might be somebody in there that just can't help themselves. You've always got that one person in the crowd that just has to cause some trouble, and you got everybody else scrambling trying to fix it. And we're in the middle of it.
Right, and in the middle of trying to figure all of it out, because clearly this phenomenon goes to our existence as people, as human beings, as living creatures on this beautiful blue planet, and it presents this true mystery, because life is, there are mysteries that you can watch on television, but this is a real life mystery, and to those of us who, like you, chase this, investigate this phenomenon, there's a lot of joy in that, because you're actually looking into something that has no explanation, for which the more answers you find, the more questions are raised. Right.
I think that was one of the. I think that's the last line in my book was for every answer there's 12 more questions, and there is. But that's it. That's our nature. That's our curiosity. you solve one mystery, you go on to another. That's why people buy a puzzle. You finish your puzzle, then you go buy another one. We can't help ourselves. We're copycats. That's why you have people that, you have the skulls, the elongated skulls that, they have the pictoglyphs on the pyramids. And then they're finding human skulls where they put the rings around. We copy. That's our nature. And unfortunately, we got a hold of some technology and we're trying to copy it. And we're getting ourselves in a little bit of trouble, aren't we?
Well, yeah, yeah, we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble if we're not appropriately shepherded,
Right.
And I mean, if I'm not much of a religious person, but I am an ethical person, and I do think that there is, an aspect of consciousness to this entire phenomenon. I kind of have to side with Jacques Vallée and his interpretation of things that are going on. That there's a higher consciousness involved in humanity on this planet. It's more than just little beings coming here from another planet. They also have something to do with our evolution, not only as living things, but as spiritual beings, I suppose, or conscious beings. So I guess what I'd have to ask you, Debbie, is what conclusions have you reached in all your years of UFO research, if any, about the nature of the phenomenon? Is it that we are being visited by people from somewhere else, or do you also see this sort of a component that escapes conventional explanation, that goes beyond that?
Well, that's what I started. I thought visitors, like everybody else, and the more research that I did, and the more in-depth research, I came to the conclusion that we're colonized. These aren't visitors. There are other beings, whether or not they've always been here, whether or not they were here before we were. I mean, how do we know that what happened on Mars? There was a speaker that we had at the MUFON Symposium a few years ago that proved that there was some kind of an atomic explosion that they blew off the atmosphere. That we didn't come from Mars and settle here. There were already beings here, beings in the water, other ones that we don't know. There's still the speculation that Venus, even though the surface is uninhabitable, that under the surface of the planet in Venus might have habitants. So I believe that, and it scared the bejeebers out of me, to tell you the truth. I was doing my research and I had to put everything down for several days and come to the conclusion and change the name to the alien colonization of Earth's waterways. They've colonized our Earth. There's bases, I believe there's bases underwater. They're being hidden underwater. Maybe the wormholes are coming in and out of the water. You can come in and out of water through maybe displacement, maybe through time. But whatever is happening underwater, if you're going to come in and out of our atmosphere and open up wormholes, or come from the future, however you want to do it, people are going to see that. You can do all that underwater. Come open up through water displacement, come in and out, have a base underwater, have something at depth. There are definitely beings here. There's too much activity going on that these people that we assume are from other planets are just coming and visiting and then going home. No, they're here.
I have to ask why they're not openly revealing themselves. I mean, I do think that we wouldn't see them unless they wanted us to. But is that the same thing as them revealing themselves to us? And so why would they still maintain an arm's length from us? In other words, why if they can come? I mean, they certainly clearly can come and go as they please. And so, my question is there a reason that they don't want to directly interact with us beyond the occasional abduction or interaction?
Unfortunately, Cape Girardeau, 1941. I'm right here, right over there, actually, right off the highway, Interstate 55. You go south exactly 90 miles, you got Cape Girardeau. April of 1941, a craft crashed there. There were 3 alien beings. 2 of them were dead. One of them survived. And the first thing they did was shoot it. Then they felt bad and they called Reverend Huffman from the Red Star Church, who came over and gave it last rites. There was a picture taken of 2 men who were holding it up by these long arms. It was buried someplace there. I would assume the other 2 also. They always talk about the one buried, but there were 3 alien beings. They were buried. Then people kept stealing the stone. We don't know exactly where they are. But the point is, we had alien beings. We had intelligence from someplace else in our galaxy, supposedly, that came to visit my state 90 miles away. And what happened? They get shot at. They get shot. And maybe that's it. What are the first thing people do if they're afraid is they strike back. If I was an alien being, I came over here and I heard stories say, "Oh, don't go to that planet. You better watch them. Those people have, they're going to shoot at you." We've done the same thing. If you hear the reports from some of the military, the Navy reports, these craft, they were shooting at them. They have shot at the craft. You can read reports, military reports, with these Foo Fighters. We were shooting at them. So we've shot at enough things to where they're probably just a little bit leery. So you've got that. And then deer. Okay, so I see deer because I live right outside of that, a state park, Mastodon State Park, and I do see deer. But most people, we know they're out there. We know there's herds of deer out there. You don't see them very often. They hide. Why? Because, it's, I guess, preservation. It's just, there's birds. You can feed birds, but the moment you go to stand up, they take off. It's the survival mode of everything. Think about it. You see birds, right? Okay, so if you go up and try and hand feed a bird, what's it going to do? It's going to fly off. Everything is just that. Maybe that's just nature, that you have to be. You have to be a little bit afraid, I guess. It's called survival, and they've realized
it's certainly a survival instinct for humans that most people are reticent to quickly approach things like buffalo, as we were discussing earlier.
Exactly.
Although you do get those guys like Travis Walton, who chases a bear and then ends up jumping out of a truck and chasing after a UFO just as on a lark. You do have those sorts of folks. They don't normally survive like Travis did, but the UFO phenomenon the UFO phenomenon itself, as we both know, is not something that you necessarily want to play with. I see things all the time. I see things on the internet where people say things like, "Oh, I want to go so bad. Take me with you," and I think to myself, wait a second. Are they going to let you ride up front with them? Do they have
what you wish for?
Right, exactly. Do you think they have a luxury interplanetary suite that they provide to their guests en route from Earth and they'll whisk you away to a fantastic, spacey vacation on Zeta Reticuli 3? What I'm saying? It just seems to me that, like you said, be careful what you wish for. You don't necessarily want to go with these folks,
And I think it's self-preservation, just like anything else. They want to survive. That's just nature. Animals do it. We do it. I don't go up and try and approach an alligator. You know better. So I think that's part of it. Another part of it would be, I guess, because they've kept the secret. The one thing that I found in my research. We know about abductions. We know people have been abducted all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill, and way before that. It's coming out. But what's really odd is I found reading report after report, trying to find reports of people that were taken underwater. Now, people remember, they will sometimes remember that they are taken. They remember being floated out, like in Pascagoula, floated up into the ship, or Linda Cortell, in New York, out of her apartment building. Then they remember being where, what happened to them. Sometimes through regression, they'll remember that. But they'll remember being taken. And a lot of times they'll remember coming back and they'll say, I lost 2 hours. Where was I? Nobody remembers the trip back and forth. Very, very few people. And I thought that was very interesting. Even through regression, they remember what happened to them, where they were taken, and then they remember being back home. And I found about a dozen cases where people were taken underwater. But I've asked abductees. I've read the reports, and I think the reason they're able to keep the secret of where their bases are is because nobody remembers the trip back and forth.
Maybe that has something to do as well with what we believe is the possibility that they are able to manipulate time and space, so that maybe the trip doesn't last that long. Maybe they are in fact instantaneously in one place, and then instantaneously, in another place just an instant later, without actually having to go through some traveling from here to there sort of a process. Let me hit you up with something else before we go, and this is the notion that maybe humans are much smarter than we give ourselves credit for, and that maybe one of the things that the aliens are concerned about us, one of the reasons they're concerned about us, is that we are in fact very bright, very adaptable, and highly intelligent. And not only that, but perhaps even highly insidious as creatures. I mean, some of us can barely chew our own food, but then there are others among us who are, excellent scientists who are able to, figure out the most esoteric questions in science. And we talk all the time about, like you gave the analogy a little while ago of a submarine, and we take it back to Christopher Columbus times and say, I need 3 more of these or something. I've heard that analogy before, but I think maybe it might be a little bit different than that, because although maybe we haven't perhaps been able to duplicate all of the technologies that we've gotten from these crashes, I think we know that we have been able to duplicate some of them, as in things like flat screen displays, night vision, fiber optics, things of this nature that Philip Corso talked about in his book, microchip technology, microcircuitry. And so I would, what I would ask is, in light of knowing that we are, we're able to do those sorts of things, is it possible in your mind that we could actually represent more of a threat or be smarter than we actually give ourselves credit for as humans? Maybe they're interested in us because we are so smart and adaptable.
I think they're intrigued with our curiosity, because the curiosity killed the cat. That saying came from somewhere. We're curious to a fault. Sometimes we just can't let it go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what's brought us so far. That's why we like mystery novels. That's why we binge watch TV shows. Because we're not passive. We have to know. We're curious. We're determined. We're adventurous. We're explorers. And I think that's why we've gotten to where we are. Maybe got ourselves in a little trouble, but I think that's why they're interested in us. We're unique because of that.
One last thing before we go, but I remember Philip Corso, or not Philip Corso, but who was the guy that was on the crash and retrieval teams that just died not too long ago? Clifford Stone.
Oh, yes.
And he was talking about a conversation that he was having with one of the visitors, and he said while he was talking to the visitor was he was asking why humans, how did we get to where we were, and the visitor kept doing this thing with his fingers like that. And what he was trying to say was it was because we had these digits on the ends of our hands that allowed us to grasp things and put them together in a particular way, and it's because of our digits that sort of make us evolutionarily special, because and it's the ability to manipulate these tiny little things with with these little digits that allows us to do all the technological things we've been able to do.
So our brain and our hands work so well. I mean, you think about it. We'll be thinking about something, and we can be doing something with our hands and doing something with our feet at the same time. It's where sports is a great example. We can multitask.
Right.
That's another one of our unique abilities.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, I have to say I really appreciate you being with me here tonight, and I look forward to your talk this summer. You speak on is it Friday or Saturday in July?
I believe Saturday morning. I believe it. Last I saw, I think it was at 10:30 in the morning on Saturday.
Ah, good. Well, I look forward to seeing your presentation this year at the symposium. I look forward to seeing you there because we get together and have a board meeting, and then we get to have dinner together and have all kinds of discussions about UFOs and aliens and kind of the stuff we're talking about right now.
I look forward to it too. It's great to finally see somebody in person. It's with the same mindset.
Yeah, and the same in our same familiar group of UFO hunter people,
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate it, Debbie, and I'll be back in just a few moments with some afterthoughts.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
You are not alone. Thousands of people all over the world have sightings of UFOs per month. MUFON is a place to report them. Since 1969, MUFON has been investigating UFO reports and providing this information to the public. Our aim is the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. Support UFO research. Join MUFON today.
You are listening to the official podcast of the Mutual UFO Network.
Water covers 2/3 of our planet, yet only a small fraction of the world's waters have been explored, as Debbie has told us. If there are visitors to our planet, and their vehicles indeed have so-called transmedium capabilities, that is, the ability to traverse space, air, and water with equal impunity, then we would be remiss to ignore the possibility that these visitors use the opacity of our oceans to their advantage. We would have to assume that, given this capability, there is indeed an alien presence in our oceans. There are reports of USOs traveling at incredible speeds under the water, velocities no earthly vessel can reach. We have seen authenticated video of an unidentified flying object transitioning from the air to the ocean. David Fravor and his co-pilot observed a large object under the water on their way to the coordinates provided to them by radar operators on the USS Princeton during their 2004 Tic Tac incident. One of the Tic Tac objects could be seen maneuvering erratically just above the large white, cylindrical, slightly submerged USO. As if the world's oceans were not mysterious enough, we now have to contend with the possibility that the world's waters hide even greater mysteries. If aliens have come to planet Earth, what better place to hide than in the depths of the oceans? They could even be hiding in large lakes, or small waterways. But why? What do they want from us? This has always been the question. Maybe they want nothing more than for us to take care of our own planet, not blow ourselves up in an infantile nuclear spasm. Thank you for joining us once again. Our thanks to Debbie Ziegelmeyer. We look forward to seeing her at the MUFON Symposium this July 11th through the 14th in Dallas, Texas. Don't forget to leave your comments below, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time, right here on the official MUFON Podcast.